This is desert country, typical of the type of terrain found over most of the great Southwest. Very little rainfall here. We are entering Trona, site of the huge American potash and chemical works. Valuable minerals are extracted from the brine secured from Cyril's Dry Lake, an ancient inland sea. From Trona we will proceed east over the Slate Range down into the Panamint Valley. Extending from north to south, this valley is approximately 60 miles long, and it too was once the bed of an ancient inland sea. Parts of the valley floor are very similar to those found in Death Valley, which runs parallel to the east, on the other side of the Panamints, which are seen here in the foreground. Ballarat, formerly called Post Office Springs, can be seen in the distance, across the salt flats, and just at the base of the mountains. Note the tremendous alluvial fans extending out from the major canyons. This large fan in the distance extends out from Surprise Canyon. 6 miles up this canyon, at an elevation of about 7,000 feet, is the ghost town of Panamint City, deserted for many years. Ballarat is dead. Walls are crumbling and returning to the desert. We will drive on down now and seek out the entrance to Goler Wash, which is approximately 15 miles south of these ruins. We made our overnight camp at this old mine cabin located at the mouth of the wash. Only a Jeep or other four-wheel drive vehicle is eligible for this trip. The grade is steep, requiring extra low gear in places, and the canyon walls are very narrow. When we saw this yellow keratinite-colored outcropping, the Geiger counter was brought into use, but no radioactivity was evident. We continue on up this narrow cleft in the mountains and appreciate the Jeep's ability on such a trail as this. Incidentally, almost every type of mineral can be found in these mountains, and we stop again with the counter to examine more of the yellow-green outcroppings. Colors are varied, and rock formations are fantastic. This cabin in Goler Wash belongs to an old miner who lives in Trona. The shack is complete with all modern facilities. Well, almost complete. Finally, we arrive at Butte Valley, with its upturned, odd-striped butte, and we pause to examine the lonely grave, which commands a view of this valley, where Mr. Mangle lived for years in his cabin. Striped Butte is composed of layered minerals which represent 3 distinct geological eras. Its appearance is ever-changing, as the sun changes its position in the sky during the day. The children like this little cabin at Anvil Springs, too. This old gold mine is located just behind the cabin and has been deserted for a long time. Someone built this reservoir, water from the spring, and it makes an ideal swimming pool. Anne watches a desert storm move in, but the burros that we next see are unconcerned. We will stay in this little rock cabin on the hill, and we are assured of complete privacy because there just isn't another human being around here for miles. The valley, however, is well populated with wild burros, and here are a few pictures of them in the distance. We leave Anvil Springs cabin now, after a restful night, and we stop about a half-mile south at the cabin, which was occupied by Mangle. This man now rests in his grave overlooking this strange valley. Just a few desert flowers have arrived this early in the season. The little blue flower is actually a 1/4 inch across. These flowers are very small, called belly flowers by the natives, because one must assume such a position to see them in detail. Flowers in profusion in this particular area. These yellow and red blossoms are best observed at close range. Anne found more bluebonnets, and we just had to dress several up to give you the idea behind the name. Cactus is in bloom, close to Panamint Russ's cabin. The door is wide open, and though crude in its construction, it is comfortable. Several large clumps of lupin were found close to the Russell mine. Called bluebonnets in Texas, and a close-up shows you pretty well where the name is very descriptive. Horned toads are found in most arid regions, are quite harmless, even though they look like some of the prehistoric monsters which once roamed the earth. The desert has many living things, lizards in particular, all quite unafraid, very small in size. The brilliant colors of this particular lizard seem to leave the reptile uncamouflaged and perhaps unprotected. In any event, we are on our way, and we'll go back north once more to Ballarat and attempt the road up Surprise Canyon to see what is left of Panamint City. We note that most of the houses in Panamint City were constructed of rock, and the cloudburst of 1874 with its huge wall of water failed to demolish most of them. However, a layer of silt and rocks 3 to 4 feet deep is found in and about most structures, which are left standing. We had a visit with Mrs. Thompson at her home above the town, and then came back to take pictures of the old 32 stamp mill, which is now in ruins. One smokestack has collapsed, the other is cracked. The dream of another Comstock is ended, and so ends our film of a very pleasant weekend trip into the desert.